Erosion of trust is a big issue, isn't it?
Once trust starts being eroded, people feel disempowered. And the word I'm going to use, hopefully it'll be a word I use quite often, is fairness. That's got impact for society, but it certainly has impact for them.
Trust matters and almost regulates that relationship that we have.
Potentially what we're talking about in that is human-centric AI. They're not like us, it's a diss track, and we'll ignore the discussion about Drake for the moment.
I really didn't expect us to start with a beef between Kendrick and Drake, but, listen, hey, come on, that's a fantastic way to start. If there's no fairness, if there's no sense of fairness, then trust can be eroded really quickly.
Because it's language that leads into biases, it can push hallucinations, the language of fairness as opposed to division.
What's it doing in some ways to human relationships in terms of, are we now trusting AI too much?
Hello and welcome back to the AI Values Podcast. I'm Lindley Gooden.
And I am Edosa Odaro.
Great to have you with us today. Now, this episode, we're going to meet somebody wonderful, Dr. Naeema Pasha. Now, we'll talk a bit more about Naeema later on, but it was a really fascinating episode, and we talk about things like fairness in the use of and development of AI. We talk about bias, and we talk about trust, and we talk about, how important it is to understand the information that's coming out of it in terms this time of psychology and your health. It's really lovely to talk to Naeema, isn't it, been, Edosa?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible one because actually some of what we're talking about is the relationship between us humans and AI. And it's a strange thing to talk about a relationship between humans and AI, really, but it is something that's happening. People are actually starting to have some sorts of, definable relationships between themselves and AI. And the whole point around what we trust in. Are we trusting AI? Are we trusting AI too much? But even more so, I think more importantly, and this is significant insights we're getting from Naeema around how is that affecting the way we interact with ourselves? So human to human relationships. That's fascinating because not the first thing that comes to mind when we're thinking about relationships between man and machine. Is that actually affecting how we relate to ourselves? So fascinating, really, really looking forward to, how people think about and feel about this topic. And Naeema is the fountain of knowledge in this area, isn't she?
Yeah, really, absolutely. And if we are treading that delicate line between AI and humankind, this definitely pushes the needle into humankind. So really good to hear this stuff. Now, when we talk to a guest, we also look at some related news and a really interesting report that came out this year. It's just one report, but they're really fascinating and probably quite important for us all to hear. An organization called ECRI, which is a non-profit patient safety organization, they put a piece of research together, which is kind of shocking, really. It shows that the misuse of AI chatbots is, according to them, the top health technology hazard for 2026. Yeah. Now, just let's take you through a couple of these little findings because they are kind of shocking, really. Is that a piece of research from Yale related shows that 92%, almost 92% of cases that AI ordered in terms of medication, they ordered unnecessary, laboratory tests, and a little bit less, 60% almost, made people order unnecessary medications. Now, this is so important, I think, that we understand the limits to the way we use AI, and that is huge, yeah.
But that's huge, though, isn't it? 60% is significant, isn't it? When you think about, that is more than half of the orders that people are actually of things that go into ourselves, medication. That's significant, isn't it, Lindley? I mean, it's huge.
It's effectively a decision of life and death. I mean, it can be. So to make those decisions, I think what it opens up, and this is something we'll talk to Naeema about, it opens up our perception of and our approach to the advice that that our bots are giving us. This is, yes, okay, focused on healthcare, and the fact that the ECRI found that it's the number one hazard. I mean, that reminds me of a hazard that the World Economic Forum was finding last year, which was that mis and disinformation are the number one societal risk to us all. I mean, so actually, I suppose what we need to look at, Edosa, and we'll talk to Naeema in a second, is that we need to really sharpen our wits on the way we are interacting with and the information we're taking out of our favorite bot.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing here is that distinction around who these things are impacting and in what kind of situations, kind of like the when it's happening. And perhaps really is about how this is actually manifesting in our lives. Because I think the trouble is, it's very, very different if you're trying to find a movie to watch tonight, right? And AI kind of gets it wrong. You get something that is not, very far from remarkable and, really puts you to sleep. Or perhaps that's what you're looking to do. But on the other hand, when we're talking your well-being, how your mental health, or even life or death kind of situations, that's a completely different situation we're talking about there. And I think it's really important that we make that distinction.
Yeah, I love the fact you're going to your favorite bot for TV listings. I mean, seriously, have you never heard of something called Google? But that's brilliant. No, listen, let's get straight into Dr. Naeema Pasha. Now, Naeema is a visiting fellow at Henley Business School, where she founded the World of Work Institute, exploring how AI and tech shifts are reshaping the workplace, and we'll talk about that too. She's a behavioral scientist, author of Future Proof Your Career, and she has been a contributor to the AI to the UN on AI and lots of other things too. So let's meet Naeema right now.
So Naeema, good morning and welcome. It's so good to have you here on this podcast. It's been ages trying to get you on here. I'm just pleased to have you on here finally.
I'm so happy to be here. Good morning to you as well. It's just, it's fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lindley.
So Naeema, I think I want to jump straight in because there's so much to go through, and I have so many questions I want to ask, and really, but let's start with what's really driving your work right now, and maybe extend that into why it's important, why does it matter at this precise moment?
Oh, why does it matter at this precise moment? Well, that's funny you should say that because I did a talk yesterday and it was called They Not Like Us because being a Kendrick Lamar fan. And I actually said why this moment matters because They Not Like Us, it's a diss track and we'll ignore the discussion about Drake for the moment. But that's another podcast. But the thing is that what's driving me at the moment is that how They Not Like Us is about divisions. I mean, obviously there's the Kendrick Lamar and Drake division, but what that song was also about, divisions that we see in society, and those divisions can be growing. And obviously, I'm sure we'll come up to how AI can exacerbate that. And that was the talk I did yesterday. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. So the kind of stuff I've been working on more recently is this whole thing about Industry 5.0, this term that's used about how we move into this next new stage. There's always a new stage. So this next new stage about potentially what we're talking about in that is human-centric AI, how we put the human back in. And when we talk about the human, because humans are flawed and have all sorts of difficult aspects about us, obviously that's why we're in this current situation. But there's some of the things I feel we could start to look at. The key thing, and the word I'm going to use, hopefully it'll be a word I use quite often, is fairness. So that would be perhaps the driver. I've got fairness for people using AI, fairness to people in society, and fairness for people being impacted by it.
It's so that's probably at the heart of the development of if we're thinking about a mindset. But I really didn't expect us to start with a beef between Kendrick and Drake. But that's listen, hey, come on, that's a fantastic way to start. I mean, look, but it brings into a question that we speak about quite a lot, which is, kind of AI gives and it takes away at the same time. It does amazing things, but at the same time, if there's no fairness, if there's no sense of fairness, then trust can be eroded really quickly. Forget AI slop for a minute. We are in a place where I think we're all feeling AI is, is it reliable? Do we believe in the institutions using it? Do we believe in the way it's being developed? Erosion of trust is a big issue, isn't it?
Look, once trust starts being eroded, people feel disempowered. Yeah. Once people feel disempowered, they can either lose motivation, disconnect to society. And we, in a broader way, I'm very interested in work. The reason I'm interested in AI is actually because I'm interested in work and how our orientation to work. And if we've got more and more, for example, the news out recently, more and more young people who are not in work or even in education, and there's a lot more, I think there's about 10 million people who are not working. So if we have people disengaging, that's got impact for society, but it certainly has impact for them, their motivation and their drive. And also, when we continue with disempowerment and disengagement, if because of the trust, it can lead into a whole bunch of other stuff as well in society where people start taking actions. And one of the things I've been talking about is that when we feel disempowered, disconnected, when trust goes, we kind of retreat into our safety areas, the people that we feel are going to support us, our tribe, as it were, and we're less likely to talk to another tribe. And I just think we need to, if you look out the window, look at the news, look at your screens, we can see that happening. So, and AI is part of that. Artificial intelligence promotes that.
We're on that trajectory, aren't we? Where isolation is now such a big enemy of our sense of attachment, our sense of belonging, and we end up going to other places for answers. And if AI accelerates that, which I think we can already see it is, I mean, at the moment we're at the early stages, we're at the foothills where it's slop, it's fun, it's silly, it's maybe slightly dodgy, but it's cats rolling over and screeching like humans. It's all that sort of stuff that's going on right now, but it is very engaging. Unfortunately, what it does is it takes us completely away from an attachment to the middle ground where we understand each other and relate.
I think that point actually around this middle ground and the things that actually make us work as people almost in some ways. I think one of the big things that comes to mind, and I'm pulling out of what Naeema was just saying there, is that trust matters, and that's the thing that sits and almost regulates that relationship that we have. But one thing I want to pull in here really is this whole idea of how people trust AI and to what extent we are actually doing that. And when we think of it from this kind of standpoint of a relationship, are we now starting to find that we're building relationships with AI with potential, I suppose, consequences on what relationships start to mean for humans, really? I know it's a sort of deep question, but what's your kind of view around that, Naeema?
There's two bits that I think it is. Is that we are building relationships with some forms of AI. Perhaps we've gone to generative AI, particularly in chatbots. That's a place for relationship building, and social media is another way. So those two things are, and there's lots of positive things around them. Really good things about that, the technology and what it can offer. I love a good scroll. Honestly, I love sitting on my sofa,
don't we all?
Scrolling away with the two screen thing. The TV on was my first screen, and me on my the mini screen. Yeah. I do like it. It's nice. And I don't. But there is some research around the kind of things that both of you talked about. There's from a digital groupthink research, is that what it will do is there are concerns about social isolation from this, and as you mentioned, Lynn, and there's also concerns which kind of related to what you say in our relationship, that we can have through our digitally enhanced kind of lives, we can also develop something called groupthink a lot more. I mean, not something we all know what groupthink is, but I mean, it can exacerbate that. And actually, one of the things I've been looking at more is how that relates to workplaces as well. It's not just us sitting and scrolling on a phone, but how this groupthink, this kind of behaviors, the kind of things that we have, how it comes into the workplace, and the kind of things.
How does it? How does it? Because it's something I've been talking about, so it's really interesting. How do people tread this stuff into the workplace? Does it change relationships? Does it change what they believe at work, what they do at work?
Well, it literally does it, because AI, I've called it, it's a kind of an architect of boundaries. What we do when we have our groupings is that we create boundaries, and what we're perhaps lacking at the moment is a lack of interconnection between those boundaries. So we're retreating into our groups, and they're not just groups on social media, you know, like, oh, I love baking, I'll follow all the baking stuff, and then I'll never look at anything on, I don't know, machinery or something like this. There may be these kind of things I'm not meeting. But actually what it also does in the workplace is that because there's certain things that pattern amplification, the kind of things that are recommended, because maybe your Slack is looking at sentiment and analysis and it's looking at emotions, it's actually creating boundaries, it's creating a particular way of behaving, the kind of language you're looking for, HR recruitment, a lot of the things that we all know, the culture of most AI in our use comes from California, and it's got that kind of culture that we're driven in about how we behave, what we say, the kind of how we show up. So it actually can create more of that. More reinforcement. Whereas in the workplace, in your meetings, you know, when we go into a meeting, where we can see there's more, once we're more face to face, we can see more a difference, and we in how we respond to that. So in some ways, what I've been talking about in one of the book chapters I wrote is about how we can get dehumanization in workplaces because of AI, because of these tools, and it's not because we don't want to. It's just the drift towards these tools, and I think organisations looking for speed, efficiency, and all those kind of things, productivity gains, will have to also look at what happens with the impact on human connection as well. That's not to say we should all be back in the office. I'm not an advocate for that. Just to say, I don't want to let this go back into this. What I'm saying is leaders need to think about how we connect as humans and how to understand the output of artificial intelligence and how they need to ensure the trust, the trust factor.
No, we land back on trust, and then that's really interesting. And I wonder, you know, this whole trust thing, you know, what's it doing in some ways to human relationships in terms of, are we now trusting AI too much? Or is AI now actually, is there sort of an impact, a consequence almost in terms of how humans now trust each other? I mean, is there some sort of, you know, I just wonder. I hear a lot of people now starting to more or less confide in AI. Are we confiding in AI more than humans? Is it creating distrust amongst ourselves? What's that actually doing? How's it playing out?
Can I just break that into two things? I don't think we are trusting AI more than humans. We're still trusting humans more. There's a lot of research on that to show that we're still trusting. We still prefer human interaction. And actually, another talk was out about AI and filmmaking at the university, and someone was saying they hate AI content, you know, the mid-journey vibe that you see on images, and they're scrolling past those when they see that because it doesn't feel connected and warm. And one of the things I do, I'll reveal this now, but one of the things I did in my talk yesterday, and I'll do a few other talks, there's a couple of typos put in on purpose. And because some of the research, I do tell people this is a real typo at the end. Some of the research is that because the output from AI is kind of perfect, it's got, AI isn't just for good, it's also for, that kind of language that generative AI uses. It's got that kind of thing. And here's 4 bullet points of that. So once you've got that and the images, people start having less trust. We actually prefer humans that have flaws, which is why I put these typos in, because people go, oh, she made a mistake, but they know I've written it. So actually we do have higher where we are, and actually we don't trust AI more. We don't trust AI leaders because we're getting all this stuff about social media not being a score, all these kind of things, and AI slop, as you talked about, deep fakes and things. So we're not seeing it that way. And I think AI leadership really needs to understand that our trust, once it goes even further and further, it's just going to have enclaves, people following it because they can produce videos and things. That might be a bit dodge, but so I don't think we trust it. But what you're saying is, are we leaning into it more? The tools are there. So the tools are there so we can engage in it, and they can be very attractive. I wanted to use addictive, but I don't know if that's the right word. They can be very attractive. I was on ChatGPT this morning looking at health kind of thing, and I found it amazingly good. it is very chipper and go, you should be really proud of yourself. And like,
Yes.
oh, you're amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. So we have that. So that could be enticing, attractive, and we could really get into it. So, but if we don't have we can't get a GP appointment.
Well, I'm saying this is the same as we've had with social media for so long, and it's just the kind of confident wrongness combined with absolute engagement. You know, I've got access to the world, and I can find out answers now that I couldn't possibly have found with just one tiny little inaccurate text search, and suddenly I've got access to the world. Now that is that's a pure consumer, but I do wonder. I mean, one thing we talked about before we came on today was about how different people from different demographics, maybe young people, if they want to go for. I mean, we've got to look at the damage, but also the opportunities of this stuff. And one of the things you mentioned was that maybe younger people who don't want to go to, say, a counselor or a psychotherapist, and they might be, because of a perception that it might be just for white people, and for example, then they might go to a bot because it's fair, it's honest, it's going to give me access to stuff, it's private. I mean, all these things are probably not true. At the same time,
I think they are true.
Young people do believe that.
Well, I don't think they're not true. I think they are true. And it's also true for me this morning thinking, I'm fine, by the way, but it's also true this morning to thinking, how long will it take me to get a GP's appointment? If the systems are broken, then we'll look for other routes, and this route is really quick. And I got a whole stuff off, and it was ChatGPT I used rather than another Gen AI to give me some answers. So that's one thing. So maybe it could be used for good in, say, healthcare, that we can better control. It's run by GPs or something like this, that we feel more secure in it. We still have trust in the NHS as a trusted organisation. If we look at trust parameters, and actually, yes, there's a lot of research to show that when we want to access counselling or coaching and therapy, and that's a big use of generative AI, big use. I think I can't quote it. Hopefully, one of you will have a quick check, but it's something like 60.
We'll find.
60%. I think of uses of it is used for therapy and companionship. Now, that could be because the structures in society mean that we can't access it as easily, and actually, many coaches aren't attractive to young black men, Muslim men. Should we put that whole thing in where people feel like, will I be judged on this? I've put all those the sort of 4 parameters, and so people will feel that's difficult. And that's just the language of being used broadly, that people feel, I'm not sure if this person will believe me. There's more angst from groups of society than the other work I do is around diversity and inclusion. There's more angst and concern about language that's used. And people, that makes people more reluctant to access services and providers because they think, will I be judged more? So something like a non-judgmental bot giving support might be good. Now, the thing is, quickly to say, Lindley and Edosa, the research shows, and it was led by somebody called Dr Pasha, who's at Henley as well. He showed that, the output of counselling or coaching bots is good and comparable to human, but not as comparable to very high quality human coaching. It's not there yet, but it's so. But that's
so. There's a sort of a fork in the road, is there, between high quality and really accessible, really useful advice?
Yeah, exactly. So the high quality might be, to give an example, is that when you use a generative chatbot and say, look, I'm having real problems with this relationship, it's really difficult, and you can change the settings, but on the whole, it's your champion. It comes in and go, well, and it can access some amazing therapy models and say, well, clearly what you're perhaps digging into is your fear of abandonment, say, which is probably because it remembers, because if you use the same chat, because you had that childhood issue. So that is quite sophisticated. But what it can't do, it doesn't have a lived experience because it's an algorithm. So it can't reflect on it from its own experience and say, and from the other clients it's worked with. It can't do that in the same way. And what it also can't do is pause, because it's such an eager beaver.
Right.
It wants to respond really quickly. And let me give you 4 bullet points on how you might handle the next conversation with, where rather than a lot of therapy will require somebody to sit quietly in a space, but with them there. It can't quite do that.
And also, it's going to look at you and go, Naeema, today I've never seen you look so brilliant. Your health advice today is to do absolutely
Naeema
nothing.
always looks brilliant. Yeah, so
Yes.
I don't think she needs even AI to remind her of that. But listen,
Too kind.
but listen, I want to take this. I mean, because I think what you just said there, Naeema, is really actually significant, and I think this is one of the things that more and more people need to. I mean, just thinking into the future now, we're talking about, access to, advice, to therapy, and this is not a replacement issue we're talking about here. We're talking about people who do not actually have that level of access at the moment. So it's actually providing new capability across society. So it's really interesting. But I think one of the things I wonder about is, like you say, we're talking about AI here, which it does have certain flaws. We've talked about hallucination and things like that. But particularly a lot of people talk about bias within AI. And in fact, you can extend that beyond bias into noise. I wonder, Naeema, how do we reflect on that, especially given that we're going into this kind of world potentially now where we do have this kind of need and we do have this kind of benefits? When we bring in things like bias, bring in things like noise, how do we sort of sit those two things alongside each other? That, we've got all these things coming in, but we've got bias, we've got noise. Is it good versus bad? Is it slightly good, slightly bad? I mean, how do we put it all together?
I don't know. I was all right, and then you asked that last bit. How do you put it
right.
together?
Yeah.
Right.
Bias and noise.
That's a big thing. So bias, noise, hallucination. I met a person a couple of days ago who's developing this new tool to look at hallucination drift, looking at bias drift, so really kind of integrating it. So everyone's kind of, people are concerned about this. So there's a lot of can detect to bullet in. So it's always there. It's built on our own biases and things. Hallucinations coming because it's an eager beaver and it wants to come up with, the LLMs want to come up with some kind of answer. It can lead to, so the dangers, and I'm looking at it in some of the, I think I talked about before, an AI approach called semantic caching, which is like pulling all the words together, so you don't always have to. So a semantic cache will keep in things like, I forgot my password. What is my password? I can't remember my password. So all those things are quite similar. So the semantic cache, if an AI agent, a company was using AI agents to go that, we'll use that. It's quicker, it's faster. Now the danger, if I go back to trust and bias, is that it can amplify some biases unless that software has been really kind of been grilled, because it might not be up to date. It might be giving information because it's not looking at how women respond to that, because the language might be different to say how women might use certain things, a whole bunch of things. So the danger for an organization is that I was looking at insurance in particular, it's like when it gives a wrong answer, we get quite cross with it. We get more cross than we get with a human saying, oh, that was the wrong answer, because we're kind of used to, maybe evolutionary, kind of humans having flaws. So when the AI gets wrong, we get quite wrong. Machine said no, get quite cross. So that's, and so we get cross with the bias as well. And there's a lot of talk about bias, say, in recruitment and bias in other forms of things and how we get there. But if I may, one of the things I led on at Henley was something called the Equity Effect, about race equity in the workplace, a massive report, really good. And I'll give you a couple of findings from it, and then I'll make my point. So the couple of the findings were that we found, and it sits on lots of other data as well, to show that organisations that paid attention to inequity in the workplace, particularly towards race, and they tackled it, had 58% higher revenue than those that didn't. 58% higher revenue than those that didn't.
Wow.
So massive results.
That's huge.
It does. And it can't, first of all, you think, what? That's crazy. Then second, you go, well, hold on a second. If people are in workplaces and we feel valued and we feel connected and we can feel creative and we can say, you know what, I can contribute here, then obviously it contributes to value and growth and innovation.
Of course it does.
And retaining talent, all that stuff. So that's point one of the report. Point two is that we asked leaders, do you recognise the importance of race equity in your organisation? Yes, it's very important. Will you tackle it? It was down at the bottom. So one of the things is that people still, it's a big thing to, not casting aspersions, because it's a big thing to start tackling these big things like inequality, race, gender, age, sexual orientation, maternity, all these kind of things that are, considered. If we go against discriminations towards groups, then it's a big old thing to go to, and it carries things. So in terms of the AI bias, I kind of think if we were committed as an organisation, as a society, say, let's tackle inequality generally, let's stand up for these generally, is going to come through in our systems, because it will just go. And in fact, in some ways, people are going, let's try and get, as I said, met a developer saying, I'm trying to get this, looking at drift, I'm looking at bias, I'm trying to get it worked out. At the moment, I'm still waiting to hear from a lot more leaders saying this is what we're going to tackle on the ground with getting, say, more black women up in an organisation.
And it's
listen, we're almost at time, and I just wanted to come back and just mention that you were right on that proportion of people going to ChatGPT in particular for their advice.
There you go,
it's
Naeema.
In the UK,
I just feel chuffed
according to the
now.
Independent, it's around about 40 million people, which is roughly 2/3 of the UK population. I'm sure that's reflected
First
around
of all,
the world.
shocked that I got it right, and secondly, wow, that's a hell of a number, isn't it?
Yeah, literally 60% of adults, it says here, whatever that means. So the demographics are sort of pieced into the research. But listen, we do have to follow. What we're going to do is we're going to extend our chat. We will keep on talking for longer, and we'll put that out as content a little bit later on. There's so much more. But we have covered a lot on trust. We've covered a lot on fairness. One final question, if you wouldn't mind, Naeema, which is, and you touched on it there, really, if there was one bit of advice or a demand that you might have in terms of either developing AI with fairness, or, and I know Anthropic are looking at this at the moment in the Constitution, or in terms of us, kind of interpreting things that are fair to us. So maybe one or the other. What would you say is the most important thing right now? For a consumer point of view, I'd say, well, listen, take it with a pinch of salt. Don't always take in what you are being told as gospel, because it may not be. But maybe you want to talk about what you think the developers should be doing to make things more fair.
I've just talked about semantic cache, and the word semantic is the thing I focus on, and I'm really interested in our language, because it's language that leads into biases. It can push hallucinations. The language of fairness as opposed to division. So I'm going to say there was a program many years ago which is very, very dodgy. It's called Mind Your Language, but I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that, if there's something that we could consider, is we should consider the language that we use. And we see it in perhaps the news quite often, where people are a bit free with their language. And I think, is there somebody listening to you? What language can I use to connect people, and watch the language that makes division? And then I think the AI will follow that.
Incredible,
Absolutely
Naeema.
Right.
No, I like it. I like it. What a way to close. But listen, Naeema, it's been really good, and I mean, this has been valuable to me, and hopefully to yourself as well.
Oh, it's been great. Thank you so much.
And,
first of all, quickly, just to say thank you so much. It was just a real pleasure and honour to be on this with you both, amazing people.
Thank you so much. It's lovely, and same to you. And these are the issues that may seem soft to a lot of people, but they're kind of fundamental to the way AI develops. The heart that currently some systems don't have. We have to. We can't put human values too much into the systems we're using, but somebody has to make sure that there are boundaries and safe boundaries for people, and that people are included. Edosa, I'll let you finish.
Yes, indeed. No, thank you. I want to just echo that. Really, thank you. Naeema, I know you're very busy and sought after and everything else. Well, we got you on here, and I think you've just delivered so much. I think people listening to this, watching this, are going to get so much from this. So thank you very much indeed.
Oh, my pleasure, Nona. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, what a joy. It was actually a lot of fun as well, but we did cover a lot of serious issues. I mean, one of the things that I really chimed with me was the trust and erosion problem. We started off with this, how perhaps how we're trusting AI too much, but also it kind of slips into this place where our trust is eroded in other places. So I think it was really important to say that, Edosa.
It was. I mean, yeah, Naeema did not disappoint at all. Incredible wealth of knowledge and insight in this space. I mean, we talked about God knows, so many different things, didn't we? Accountability, governance. We talked about the future of teaching, coaching, therapy, But I think for me, one of the key things that really, really struck me was this whole idea of our perception around what bias actually is, and even extending that even further into noise. This inconsistencies. I think a lot of people forget that good as and exciting as AI might be, its original kind of knowledge base comes from us. It comes from humans. It comes from the decisions that were made in the past. And noise really is focusing around the inconsistency in the ways we make decisions. So in the same situation, would Edosa say yes and Lindley say no? I mean, it's the same situation. So when you feed all of that into AI, it's really interesting then to look at how that then manifests and how AI actually works and how that affects, of course, the ultimate thing, which is decision making. So that was fascinating from Naeema. Amazing.
Yeah, and I absolutely second that. And I also think that what came out of this, which is really important to understand, is our perception, our relationship with our favorite bots, and why we go to them for certain bits of advice. Now, it may be that we are doing that invisibly, that we're not even perceiving really why we're doing that. But Naeema really gave us a good few examples there, a good sort of approach into using your bot for things like psychological or health advice, where, and the news story at the top of this episode talked about if we misuse these resources, then you can really be taken down a very potentially dangerous line. So it was really interesting to know to see that missing link into why we would perhaps go to a bot for stuff that we wouldn't go to a human for. So I found that really good. Listen, we have to curl up the tent and finish this episode, but really enjoyed it. Thanks, Naeema, for being with us, and for you for watching and listening to us. And listen, we want to make you part of this podcast. The conversations that we have here are so important potentially to us in the future and probably tomorrow as well. So we want to hear from you. You can get in touch with us any way you like. Just search us out, but you can certainly right here look for @AI Values, and you'll probably be very close to where we are. So we'd love to hear from you. Any stories, any ideas that you think we should be talking about, get in touch.
Indeed, I completely agree. Just keep those messages coming through. We're very happy to receive them. We're responding to everything we're getting. And this conversations are getting more and more exciting as we go along. Can't wait for the next one now, Lindley. But until then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thanks a lot for listening. See you. Bye.